Herzlich willkommen zu einer neuen Folge von TV-Helden, der Branchenpodcast für alle, die sich professionell mit Fernsehen beschäftigen. Mein Name ist Christian Heinkele. In this episode of TV Heroes podcast, we have a truly special edition for you. Today, I have the privilege of speaking with the TV professor, a true master in the art of mapping the media universe. His understanding of the TV industry is outstanding, and he is never hesitant to share his opinions. However, what sets him apart is that his statements are always grounded in his extensive experience and backed by solid data. I'm very pleased to welcome our guest, Evan Shapiro.
Hey, how are you?
Evan, thank you so much for joining me today to discuss the most beautiful industry in the world, the TV industry. In this podcast, it's all about TV and TV heroes. And you are definitely a TV hero. And before we dive into the fascinating topics at hand, I'd love to learn more about you, your journey, and I want to gain insights into how you became the well-known figure you are today. Additionally, I'm curious to understand where you draw your insights from and how you navigate the evolving trends within the industry. Are you ready for this?
Absolutely.
Cool. So let us go back to 1996, to your start of your career. You were the first head of marketing in the history of the New York Shakespeare Festival and Public Theater. Was this period the first encounter with the media industry? And how on earth were you able to stream a live theater play in 1996?
So a couple things. Actually, my start at the Public was about 2 years before that, 1994. And I had been working in the media industry. I had been working for an advertising agency called Serino Coyne, which still exists today, one of the most important advertising agencies in the history of American theater. So they've launched everything from, a chorus line and Phantom of the Opera up through and including The Lion King and recent shows on Broadway, and they still operate today. So I was an assistant account executive there, and a friend of mine was offered the job. He and I were peers as the head of marketing at the New York Shakespeare Festival, the Public Theater. George C. Wolfe had just taken over. And for some reason, his name is Greg, he turned it down. Now, what's interesting is he remains president of that agency today. So I don't know who made the right choice, but I said, "You're nuts. Introduce me to George and let me interview for the job." He did. I was only 26 at the time, I think.
Okay.
And for some reason, George Wolfe gave me that job. He had there was nothing in my history that showed that I was qualified to take that job. And he hired me anyway. And we rebranded along with Pentagram Design, one of the most important design companies in the world today, along with Paula Scher there, who led the visual artistry. We rebranded the Public Theater around George's vision of the American theater. And it was really successful. He helped the campaign by only bringing Sam Shepard and Hal Prince and Christopher Walken and Jennifer Lewis, who now famously was on Blackish, and a whole bunch of other amazing talent down to the Public. So the ad campaign really, and this is where I think my main thesis for marketing entertainment came from. Mm-hmm. I just got out of the way. Paula is a great artist. George is a great artist. The combination of the two of them into a visual language that redefined one of the most important theaters in American history, Joe Papp's the Public Theater and Shakespeare in the Park, became an easy job because of the amount of content and talent that was, centered at the theater at the time. We simply in our campaign reflected that energy, that passion, that artistry through the marketing, and we took over New York City. And that was really where, I think, again, my thesis of just let the art speak for itself, let the content come first, and then really, try to be in places that are unexpected for the consumer. Those both married in the campaign, which was Free Will, which was the rebranding of Shakespeare in the Park, and then using The Tempest and Bring the Noise, Bring the Funk, we rebranded the Public Theater and, turned it into the resurrected version of what Oscar Eustis and a whole bunch of other people are continuing to do amazing things with today. As to streaming a live piece of theater, we did not stream a live piece of theater. That is still rarely, if ever, done. I mean, Hamilton was not live. Mm-hmm. It was recorded and it was on Disney Plus. So what we did was we held the first online, this is 1996, the first digital online streaming opening night on Broadway. We did that with Bring the Noise, Bring the Funk I think it was on AOL and one of their local things. And it was a partnership with AOL at the time. This is how long ago this is. This is 1996. We were the first theater to have a website. And then I used that experience to kind of expand into helping the rest of Broadway learn how to deal with digital and how to deal with new media on an ongoing basis when I founded my own agency, which I think you're about to ask me about.
Yeah, definitely an intensive period of time and the basement of your career. After you took over New York City, you started Forefront, a marketing agency for film, TV, and the first wave of the interwebs. One statement of yours is, to fully understand business, you need to run your own. Tell me, please, as a self-employed founder, what have you learned founding and running Forefront?
Well, you have to take into context that I don't have a college degree, let alone an MBA. So accounting and finance and P&Ls and those types of things, was not my strong suit. And so opening that business and running it with my wife, by the way, who maintains her control over the financial actions of my company today, 30 some odd years later. I learned how to run a business, how to treat money like it was my own, because it literally was. I also learned how to generate new business and the importance of having a sales funnel. I also learned how to have business partners, which is something that I've not done since. Actually, I have done that since, and how to do that responsibly. That thesis of, I think, being a good member of the business community sometimes requires you thinking of your business as your own, or actually having your own business so that you understand keeping the lights on and keeping employees paid, and how to ethically run a business in the modern, especially media world. And I've translated that, or I've adapted that over the last 30 years into a new kind of watch phrase for me, which is, I don't think you can have a long sustained career in the media ecosystem or any industrial ecosystem if you don't treat your career as a business. If you don't see yourself as the CEO of your own enterprise, even if that enterprise has one client who is your employer, or many clients or many partners as part of your own, true corporation or business. There is no business other than your own that's going to take your well-being as much to heart as one that you run yourself. And the sustained nature of what we do in our industries is always going to come from understanding how we add to the ecosystem ourselves, independent of the jobs that we have, or the titles that we hold, or the companies we work for. What is the superpower? What is the product? What is the one thing that we add to the ecosystem that is special? And that's true, for any new startup. One of the first things I will ask is, what problem are you looking to solve? And any individual who wants to meaningfully contribute to their industry over the course of their career has to see their career as a day-to-day job, and has to understand what their unique selling proposition in the ecosystem is. And I think operating a business, a small business, or your own career as a business really teaches you the hard and soft skills necessary to do that.
Yeah, I agree with you. You mentioned this sustainability, and that you should act like a CEO. Is that in the TV industry because it's a very people-driven business or a personal industry? You know what I mean? Because it's all about the connection with other people.
Well, there's so much. I mean, it isn't medicine. It isn't architecture. It isn't engineering. It isn't coding. It's not even editing. Obviously TV is part editing and part kind of hard science. But the reason why media is struggling so mightily right now is because not everything we do can be boiled down to decimal points and dollars and cents. A decent amount of it has to be around making difficult choices at the right time. Yep. Right now, the media ecosystem needs to leave behind many of the central tenets and core foundations that built it up until this point. And doing that is hard. And that's not a math problem. That's not something necessarily you can even teach in a Master's of Business Administration program. It is simply a certain amount of leadership and acceptability of risk that comes naturally. So understanding how to weigh risks in real time for yourself, for your own family, for a business that you're ultimately responsible to, whether that's to a board or for your own bank account, teaches you the necessary failures, how to deal with the necessary failures that come with operating a business. I don't agree with fail fast, break things and move on, but I do think it's really important to understand how to say yes to things even though they're risky and how to say no to things even though they're tempting. And I think running your career as your business teaches you that.
Yeah. So why have you left your own agency after 5 years to become SVP marketing at Court TV?
So when I was a little kid, I mean, I was raised in large part with and by TV. And so running a television network was always the ultimate dream for me. Brandon Tartikoff was a childhood hero of mine. This seemed like they were a client. We had just successfully done a couple of campaigns together. And this was an opportunity to work in television, actually at a television company for the first time in my career. And they created a job for me. And this is a really good example of what I was talking about. I ran my own business. I had some disagreements with my partners towards the end over the health of the overall industry we worked in. Turns out I was a bit right about that. And I left and went to work for a client, basically a week before the recession started. I went to work there, and then 9/11 happened a week later, and that was obviously an event. But a recession ensued, which had begun prior to 9/11. Not many people understood that. But I was really glad to be at a real, safe enterprise at the time rather than running a small advertising agency. And I was able to teach myself on the fly by learning from people like Henry Schleif and Bob Rose and Charlie Collier, the ins and outs of the television business in kind of real time and at an urgent need. Some things that I don't know, had I not run my own business, I would have been able to learn and adapt to as easily as I did. And so it was a no-brainer. And that's another good example. Like that opportunity came along and I knew it was the right decision, even though it meant leaving my own business and going to work for someone else, even though it meant specializing in marketing as opposed to looking at the entire industry. These were risks, but they were acceptable risks for me because I understood this was a stepping stone to exactly where I wanted to be, which was running a television network, which I was doing less than 4 years later.
Give me an idea. How big is Court TV? How big is that genre in US TV?
Well, it's fascinating. So Court TV, as we knew it then, no longer exists. It became True TV, which Turner still owns and runs to a certain extent. And now it's a digital streaming channel again. So back then, when I got there, they had just moved from only showing court trials into doing true crime at night. And as it turns out, true crime is now the dominant genre in all media, audio, video, even gaming to a certain extent. So they were way ahead of their time. We rebranded the channel around forensics. I led that charge, and that was a huge boon to the network at the time.
Mm-hmm. So rebranding was one of your
it became a special to me. Yeah, exactly.
Your TV hero journey went on for over 8 years. You were the general manager and president at IFC and Sundance TV. Your productions won several awards and Golden Globes. The technical distribution nearly doubled and became entirely ad supported. So please tell us a bit about that time and why you chose advertising as the financing model during the golden times of pay TV.
So again, I became head of marketing of IFC, and in 10 months I became general manager, in large part because I filled a void that existed at the time, not because I necessarily had any experience in running a television channel. And in doing so, I was able to get under the hood of a small emerging television company and understand the inner workings of it in a way that, had I come at the television industry a different way, I don't know that I could have had it in such a compressed time frame. And over the course of the ensuing couple of years, we went from not only a non-ad supported television network, but a non-rated network with no ads whatsoever, no breaks in movies. We rebranded the network, a theme, to TV Uncut. We then expanded the mandate into comedy. At IFC, I was able to oversee moving into original content, including helping create the show Portlandia, which I'm the reason it was called Portlandia. And moving into, we produced a film called This Film Is Not Yet Rated, which got into Sundance Channel. I then was able to lead the charge on behalf of my company, AMC Networks, at the time, Cablevision, and by Sundance Channel. So I led that acquisition charge. I led that integration, learning how to, I had to go to my bosses and say, most of the times these type of acquisitions fail. Most of the time, 75% of the time, these types of acquisitions fail. And it's usually because of misdiagnosis and misalignment between the two new cultures coming together. I led the integration there. I did not know how to do that. I taught myself how to do it by reading and asking other people, and really leaning into and listening to the people who we had acquired from the channel and the people I worked with already at the company. We combined them into one enterprise, 2 different channels, and then I was able to create even more content on Sundance Channel with Brick City, which we won a Peabody for, and Carlos, which we won a Golden Globe for. Over the course of this time, it became very clear that single revenue source television channels were not going to necessarily be the way to be profitable long term, especially for emerging networks like this. And at that time, we struck a landmark deal with Netflix. 10 projects, streaming rights. We were the first television network, to grant streaming rights exclusively to Ted Sarandos at the time, who made the deal himself, and Robert Kinsel, who's now running WMG. The 3 of us made a deal together. And at the time, AMC Networks and Cablevision were like, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you selling these rights? First of all, why are they worth so much? They were paying us a lot of money at the time. And so that was one initiative that I spearheaded at the time. And then on the other side, it became very clear that we needed advertising dollars if we were going to continue to grow our audience and continue to grow our portfolio of original content, or really, frankly, subsist and exist as an enterprise long-term, 20, 30 years. We were going to have to diversify our revenue streams, and that meant advertising. And that was very difficult. It was difficult from a science standpoint and doing the ad math. It was difficult from an audience standpoint, justifying to independent film fans why we were now going to break their films and insert commercials. I personally got attacked on the internet by viewers of IFC. But that's been a theme for me over time, is not just rebranding, but what rebranding means, the change at those networks, change of business models, change of points of view, change of views of the industry itself, moving on to participant and starting a dual streaming linear television thing called Pivot, then going to NBC Universal and starting their first major streaming enterprise and the first one ever dedicated to comedy only, CISO. I make change. That is a big part of who I am in this industry, even when it's A, either hard, and B, sometimes unsuccessful. Pivot did not make it. CISO did not make it. IFC and Sundance now still exists. In fact, I'm making a television show for IFC right now, but they are very different enterprises than when I was running them. So part of how I identify in this industry was grown up through the things I did at Forefront for the theater industry, at Core TV, at IFC, at Sundance Channel, at Participant, at NBC, which is I make change.
Yeah, talking about this change and looking ahead to the future, which form of monetization do you see dominating the TV industry? Is it ad-supported? Is this the paywall, or is it a hybrid version?
Yes, and it is it is advertising, it is subscription, it is commerce, it is windowing, it is gaming. It is audio. Like, if you are a publisher of IP at this time and you segment the 4 sectors of the media economy represented on that map there as silos, you are fucked. You have to see it as a continuum. Whether up until Barbie, the biggest hit of the last year for Warner Brothers Discovery, or as I like to call them, Disco Brothers, was a game. Not a movie, not a television show, but a game, Harry Potter. The intellectual property transference into audio and gaming and social media and television and film. Barbie being there's a really great personification of it. That is a brand that is older than you and I, probably older than you and I combined, and actually maybe not, and it is now going to be an enterprise that kind of transcends all media. Film, television, commerce, gaming, social, abso-fucking-lutely. All of them. Mario Brothers, another one, another billion-dollar movie. Started as a game. It's been several movies now, and now one of the more successful, I think the most successful animation launch of all time. And so you are looking at it. When you look at all of the companies who publish and create and own intellectual property, if you're segmenting the various inputs and outputs that your content can traverse, you're not agreeing with your own consumers. When they love something, they look for it on all platforms: social, gaming, audio, video. If you're not there, someone else will take your place.
This is a great message to the German market. So definitely, because
especially the German market, yes.
Yeah, the US is so far ahead.
Here's, and I know, I think we should enter the German market, since you say I have a following there. I've been studying it. I hosted the European Broadcasting Union summit this May in Poland, and I was lucky enough to talk to some German television folks, and I'm coming there for Medientag in the fall, and I'll be talking to a bunch of people again in the television industry. And on one hand, the German television ecosystem is a decade behind the United States, right?
Yeah, it is.
On the other hand, as a result of being a decade behind the United States, you have the opportunity to evade and avoid the catastrophe that the American television ecosystem has become. It's a shitstorm. They're all fucked. And it's because they are addicted to, dedicated, and built around the commercial relationship that television enterprises in the United States have with their audiences. Conversely, BBC, ZDF, ARD, they don't have those issues. They have other issues, without question, political ones, but they're political ones. They're not revenue ones. Yes, I understand that budgets have been and probably are going to continue to be under pressure for public service media in Europe. However, on a person-by-person basis, on an hour-by-hour basis for the audiences you super serve in your market, ZDF and ARD have substantially more resources per human being, per hour of television watch than Netflix do in that market, without question. Mm-hmm. When you look at the time spent between linear broadcast and streaming for ZDF and ARD, it is larger than Netflix. Probably the only enterprise as big as them in that market is YouTube. Not a paid service, although part of it is paid, premium and kids, but it is a free service. And so ZDF and ARD already exist in a segment of the audience economy that the audience believes is urgent, necessary, utilitarian, and premium. You can adapt to where the audience is going much more easily because of the public service media foundation that ARD and ZDF have. ProSieben and Deutsche Telekom, different. They are unfortunately probably on the same disaster train that Disney and Warner Brothers Discovery and Paramount find themselves on right now. And there are ways to kind of maybe avoid all of the pain, but they are already finding themselves in a lot of the traps that the American corporate industrial media complex has made for itself, the corners it's painted itself into. But ARD and ZDF and BBC and France Telecom and SVT. SVT is a very, very good case study for how public service media in Europe can take advantage of their business models as opposed to be held captive to it.
So step into this, you mentioned ProSieben Sat.1 and the other local giant, this RTL group. They are, ad based. Their financial modeling is purely advertising based.
And
so
subscription.
Now they are,
and subscription.
And subscription, and their focus now is on their streaming services. So will they squeeze between the public broadcasters and the global streaming giants?
Yes, and you're going to come under a tremendous amount of pressure from. I think the largest potential threat, and yet also the biggest potential partner for European media is Google. Mm-hmm. It's the fastest growing operating system for connected television on the planet Earth. It is the number one video platform on the planet Earth. But in large part, they rely on content from those local language media like ProSieben, ZDF, and ARD. And so they can't really operate in the ecosystem without local partners. Google televisions will be meaningless if your German television channels aren't installed on those TV sets. So I think that's the largest threat, but also the largest potential partner for you. I call them collaborators. Mm-hmm. You need to keep them close. You need to be in business with them, but you also need to keep them at arm's distance. And you need to exercise the leverage that you have in your market against them. Local content. And in Germany, not just national local content, but regional, state-based. ARD's power is in their regional reach. So if you can really exert your local leverage, your local relationships, then you can have power over the partners and find true partnerships with players like Apple and Google and Amazon and NVIDIA and Facebook and others. On the flip side, I think, you should be really afraid of what Amazon brings to the table, what Google can do by kind of invading your market there, and those are going to be the big challenges there. I don't think Netflix long term is as much of a challenge to a local market operator in Germany, in France, as it is to the American players over here, because I don't know how long they can sustain the level of investment in original local language content that they've been up to. I don't think it's an endless well of resources that they have access to anymore. And the pains they're going through in launching an advertising product in the United States is demonstration of, I think they're going to be stressed in the coming years. And YouTube doesn't make content. So Amazon, yeah, they're making content. They're in your market. They're making television sets. They're going to be a major threat, but they're also potentially a major partner too, because they resell streaming services incredibly well. They're a major reseller for Disco Brothers, for Paramount, for Stars, for a bunch of other players as well. And so I think there's a collaborator relationship to be had there. Yeah. I would focus less on Netflix and focus more on how to partner and compete with those. But the best way for regional, especially public service media, but also commercial media in Europe to compete with the big tech Death Stars is to really exercise the leverage they have because they are local language, because they understand the audiences there better than anyone else can, and because they're going to actually have more resources per consumer served than the American international companies are going to have.
So local content, it is the local community engagement, and Google and all the other big platforms are business enabler. On the other side, enemies. So this is frenemies. What you always called frenemies. Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So in Germany, there are also two types of TV platforms run by telcos. Well, it's pretty much everywhere in the world, but especially in Germany. And there's one platform that focuses on pure linear television. Very simple and easy. And there are the super aggregators. And as a customer of super aggregator, you can subscribe to all the linear or nonlinear content, all the TV services which are available, which brings also a lot of complexity to find the right offer, the right interesting, relevant content for you. Which direction should cable or IPTV platforms take?
So if you're a commercial entity, I do think the super aggregator route is where the consumer is headed. They've had unlimited free range choice, and they complain that they can't watch everything, that they complain that they can't find anything to watch. And so, there's a reason why people buy dozen eggs versus an egg. There's efficiencies, there's economies of scale. And there's convenience that is really sought after. But I don't think it's, necessarily just a bundle. I think the telecoms, when you look at the United States, the bundle of services, not just the bundle of television channels on cable, but also the bundle of cable TV, broadband, and telephone, that was one of the most successful consumer offerings, specifically in media and entertainment and technology ever. It created unbelievable wealth in the media ecosystem over the last 50 years. Conversely, that's falling apart because cord cutting and the commercial television enterprise is changing. But Amazon is a great example of the new super app, the new super bundle. They don't only aggregate, so they resell all of these other streaming services. They also give you Twitch, which is one of the biggest live streaming platform on the face of the earth. They also give you audio and home shopping and discounts at Whole Foods and free shipping and all of these other elements that are wrapped up in a super subscription called Prime. I very much think that is, if you're going to be a platform akin to a telecom, Deutsche Telekom, or a ProSieben or a Comcast, or even an ITV or a Sky, although Sky's part of Comcast, I do think you're going to have to offer more than simply one thing, video. I think you're going to have to aggregate lots of video horizontally, and then lots of other services like audio or social or news or print. By that I mean Apple's news product is a very sticky product. They bundle that into Apple One now with Apple TV, Apple News, Apple Arcade, Apple Fitness, all Apple Cloud. You get your cloud as part of it. I don't know how well Apple One is doing, but they're going to lean very heavily into that version of their super app over time. And they're going to sell advertising into it as well. They just hired a new head of advertising. So yes, and a super bundle where they're going to lose money in certain sectors, TV, in order to create a much larger offering over time that's going to be profitable across the entire spectrum. That is Amazon's model. Okay. That is Apple's model. I believe that will be Microsoft's model. It is increasingly going to be Google's model. They now have YouTube TV and the NFL Sunday Ticket and music. They're the number 3 music platform on the face of the earth, and they have a massive gaming streaming platform. Their offering is going to get increasingly bundled over time. So these to me are the table stakes of where the ecosystem are going. And so it's not just a super aggregator of video. I think you have to satisfy your consumers' Maslow's hierarchy of feeds across the entire media spectrum. The more itches for a consumer you can scratch, the more satisfied they're going to be from their experience with you, and the less likely they are to churn out over time, which not only increases the lifetime value of every customer for you, but it also decreases your customer acquisition costs because you're not losing a customer that you have to try to remarket to.
Mm-hmm. And what about gaming and in combination with TV? Is this something
Netflix
for the aggregators?
Yeah, so Netflix is moving into gaming. Amazon is heavy into gaming. Apple is heavy into gaming. Google is heavy into gaming. Gaming is the biggest sector of the media economy. Mm-hmm. It's bigger than TV. It's bigger than film. And Witcher, Mario, we can go, increasingly the intellectual property moving from Harry Potter, moving from film and television to gaming, and from gaming to film and television, and back and forth and back and forth and into audio and into social. This is going to become increasingly important. PlayStation Plus has 50 million paying subscribers worldwide. And unless you think these are just kids, they have as many subscribers over 35 as they do under 35. There are 3.5 billion gamers on the planet Earth. 3.5 billion. Half of them are women. Because mobile gaming is a different audience than massively multiplayer online role-playing games like PUBG and Fortnite. However, in combination, this is a 200 billion plus industry on an annual basis, both on mobile and on console and on PC, etc. And so if you're not looking into gaming, then put that aside for a second. So 70% of Generation A say they game every day. 56% of the world's population between the ages of 8 and 15 play Minecraft, owned by Microsoft, by the way. And the vast majority of these constituencies of these tiny little metaverses say that they do far more than simply gameplay there. They play games. These are 9-hour sessions sometimes. They go there, they play games, and then they literally just hang out with friends and strangers from around the planet Earth. Social media, the next version of social media, is being invented on Minecraft, on Roblox, on Fortnite today with your kids right now. If you have ever had weird credit card charges from your kids come for things like skins or Roblox or things, R-Bucks or V-Bucks, then go spend some time with them in these ecosystems, and you will see Web 2.5 taking shape in real time. That is the next version of social media because it combines community, it combines entertainment, and it combines commerce and communication all in one continuum in real time, in a way that Facebook does not, in the way that Twitter will never do. So yes, gaming is incredibly important to any publisher of any kind right now, and it's paramount. It's like it's an urgent call. Get on it.
And me as a platform, I learned I should offer everything I could offer, everything which is available, content, gaming, all the things you mentioned. But you also said it's not bundling. You should not bundle the linear offer with SWOT services, etc. It's unbundling so that the customers always have the choice to switch contents.
But it's yes and. So I'm going to I will use the New York Times as a case study, as I've done a number of times recently, even though it's not a television enterprise. They were headed in the wrong direction a decade ago. They are a family-run business. People questioned whether they could survive what was happening to news, which is now happening to television, by the way. And then they hired someone from the BBC. And he came in and he reinvented the entire enterprise away from advertising and into digital subscription, and into audio and into gaming. They are a very large gaming company now. They're also the fourth largest podcaster in the United States and maybe even the planet Earth. They reinvented podcasting. They own Serial. So this is a completely different company than it was a decade ago. Their revenue model has completely changed. They are both a bundle and an a la carte service. If you want to subscribe to just food, you can do that. If you want to subscribe to just sports, you can do that. If you want to subscribe to just gaming, you can do that. If you want to subscribe to just the news, you can do that. And when you interact with them as a subscriber, they have a machine learning black box that in real time creates bundles or a la carte offerings for you that make sure that you never churn out. They set a goal for 10 million paid digital subscribers. They beat that goal by 2 years. They're now aiming for 15 million paid subscribers. They also have a ton of free users on podcasting and on news. But at a certain point, the machine learning clicks in and gets you to pay. And they have an advertising business, which they are beginning to regrow now because it's becoming more urgent. So the answer again is yes and. Bundle when the consumer wants you to bundle. Unbundle when the consumer wants you to unbundle. We spent 25 years ceding control over the media ecosystem to the consumer, inch by inch, day by day, year by year. And now we're surprised that they want absolute flexibility and control as a result of that. Yes, some consumers are going to want to bundle. You should satisfy that need. Yes, some consumers are going to want to do pure a la carte. You should satisfy that need. Yes, certain consumers are going to want completely ad-free, and you should satisfy that need. And others are going to want completely free with ads. You should satisfy that. And then there are consumers who are going to want to modulate the pay and free version of it and add different elements into it. And they're going to want to know what they're doing with your private, what you're doing with their privacy. You need to satisfy all of these things. It is neither this nor that, neither linear or on demand, neither audio or video, neither gaming or television. But yes, and it is all of these things. And you need to be prepared to meet the consumer wherever they are in whatever mood they're in, or someone else will do it for you and put you out of business. And very often it will be a big tech Death Star who has the technology to do this and is investing in your sector to put you out of business so that they can steal the share for their larger bundle. These are the table stakes. If you don't like it, go sell air conditioning. There are other jobs to have. It is not going to be easy. But these are the rules of the road now.
And this is the key value proposition for the future, that you say platforms will prevail that incurs the lowest search costs and stand out with the best UI and recommendation system, which could bundle with AI you the best offer.
And by the way, that's I think there's a lot of people who are afraid that AI and Gen AI are going to take away a ton of jobs in the media ecosystem. And there are certain jobs that they're going to take away, as every new technology always does. The railroad took away jobs, the automobile took away jobs, the internet took away jobs, but it also created a whole new set of jobs.
Exactly.
And in this case, real-time machine learning, predictive analysis, deep neural network stuff is going to help you keep your subscribers satisfied, your users satisfied, your viewers satisfied better than any human can in real time. And that's a great use of machine learning and artificial intelligence.
Do you see any other topics where artificial intelligence could change television?
Absolutely. I think on one hand, yes, writers should be concerned and they should be fighting, as they are here in the United States, to protect their jobs from someone using their work to teach a machine how to be smarter than them and then replicate and replace their work. Absolutely. However, On the flip side, there are going to be directors and writers and producers who are now going to be able to make premium level content that never could have afforded to do it on their own before. That's happening now.
Yeah.
And so the ability to make a beautiful piece of art from your desk using the talents that you already have honed, but now you have access to greater resources than you could have ever had before, is going to help us invent new superstar artists. They may come through what most people call the creator economy and I call the community economy, or they may come through, get greenlit by Netflix, and likely both. But at the end of the day, I think the net out of Gen AI will be good for the media ecosystem. We just have to do it responsibly. And if we have to understand how to embrace and crucially regulate these new technologies as they become available to us.
Okay, thank you so much. Last question, Evan. If I were to ask you today to build upon your 2012 manifesto, TV and Intervention, and present us with the future of TV in the year 2028, so 5 years from now, what would be your predictions?
So TV and Intervention was something I wrote in 2012. And what I said, I predicted that the television ecosystem would lose 40% of their subscribers by 2025. I was wrong. It happened by 2023, 2 years earlier. And that these streaming and virtual MVPDs would ultimately be the future of pay television. And YouTube TV was the only pay TV offering in the second quarter that actually grew subscribers in the United States. So I was right. And everybody called me crazy, including Ari Emanuel at the time. My prediction for 5 years from now is that you will see bundles ultimately through big tech of content and services that are super serving consumers globally. And that will include aggregation of things like local media by region, by territory. It will include audio and gaming and cloud and other types of services. I think you're going to see television stories told very similarly to how they are told now. But I think you're going to see a dramatically different type of artist participating in them. So I think certain stories are universal. Back to Shakespeare's day. We keep reinventing kind of the hearth that we sit around. But I think you're going to see a whole new type of artist emerge from the community economy who looks at the world differently by dint of the fact that they come from Generation Z or Generation A than the top-down, predominantly white, predominantly North American and European thought leaders who have been driving the ecosystem over the last 25 years. Mostly, I think you're going to see an entertainment ecosystem that is finally meeting the consumer where they are, which is I manage and maintain my own bundle with my thumb on my phone on a regular basis. I change the revenue inputs as they suit my own finances and my own mood. And the technology, because it is so advanced, meets me there. I can shift from device to device, from revenue stream to revenue stream. And by the way, my privacy will be valued and create value for me, as opposed to me just seeding it for free to you so that you can use me as a product. That's a pretty complex view, but it's basically the idea of these super bundles that are intelligent, but are equally reliant on local. I don't see the BBC not having power, but they'll be a channel within a larger ecosystem as opposed to always maintaining the direct relationship.
Looking forward to speaking with you in 2028 to recap all this. This was really enlightening. Thank you so much. I could do this for hours. It's
I do
so
every
much.
day. When we get off, I'll keep talking to myself. So I appreciate the time to do it on mic. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. All the best for you and your team, and see you soon on the Streaming Media Connect 2023, which is happening in
3 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. In August. Yeah. Thank you so much for being my guest today.
Thanks so much.
And I thank you for listening. You can find all the information about Evan and his work and, of course, his must-read newsletter in the show notes. For more information about the TV-Helden podcast, please visit tv-helden.com. Thank you very much, and hearing you soon. All the best. Christian.